This is the Discuss Metal Podcast with Klank and Pat from Klank. Hosted by Dan Terry. Presented by discussmetal.com.
What is up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the Discuss Metal Podcast. My name is Dan. I know it's been a while. This is my first interview that I've done in 2022, but we are back on the horse, and I figured the best way to get back on the horse is to talk to Klank and Pat of Klank. What is up, guys?
Hey, how's it going?
Oh, it's going. You guys are. I am alive and happy to be talking and not laying in cold water working on a vehicle.
Yeah. Well, your beard is coming rather nicely since the last time we spoke, so kudos.
Well, yeah, it's never going to be as epic as your beard, but I know I get really weird. I shave it like twice a year, maybe something like that. I'll shave it completely off and pretend like I'm a high schooler again. But yeah, I can. Reset. Yeah, I think I'm going to stick with it though. I'm trying to make a pact with myself that I'm going to like let it grow for like 5 years and just keep it nice looking, but not actually remove any length. The more exciting than my beard is you guys have a new record out called Between Unholy and Divine, Volume 1, which we'll get into the Volume 1 part of it later. This one kind of came out of nowhere to me. I know I don't talk online as much as I should. And so this thing kind of came out of nowhere for me. How long have you guys had this one in the work? I know last time we talked I think it was like back in 2020, at least on the podcast. And I know you were talking about working on some new stuff. So was this it? Has this been kind of in the works for a while?
Pat and I have been working on this since 2017.
Okay.
We work fast.
Yeah. Well, I can't imagine what would slow you down. I mean, nothing's been going on in the past few years.
No. Yeah, we've just been slacking.
Nothing wrong with a little bit of slack, and it takes some time to get art to the point where you're happy with it and confident enough to be able to show it to other people. That's
the blessing and the curse of like Pat having his own studio and us not being on a label. So it's you don't have anybody standing over your back, yay! But sometimes you have to reel it in and have somebody going, all right, dude, deadline, let's go. So after a while, Pat and I are like, we're perfectionists. So a lot of times we constantly review things. I can't even tell you how many thousands of times we must have heard these songs since day one in different variations and incantations. So we got to a point where we were like, all right, is this good? We had to draw that line in the sand and go, all right, excuse me, we need to be happy. So, which we are, but it's so used to when you're not paying per hour on studio time and you don't have somebody standing over you going, wrap it up, wrap it up.
Right.
You kind of get lost in what you're doing.
Yeah. And no firm deadlines. We're really big of being like, all right, we're going to put a deadline on this. And then that comes and we're like, yeah, nah. Yeah. We'll move that down the road 2 months.
What deadline?
Yeah. Yeah, because we're pretty anal with what we do. We're not going to put it out until we're happy with it. Because in the past we put out stuff and then look back and go, cringe.
Why did I settle on this?
Yeah, exactly. So that's been a big thing with us over the last while. So this, like Klank said, we've been working on this since probably 2017. And then finally said, all right, we have to get this out and work on new stuff because we have a Dropbox full of new stuff.
So we're talking the 2028 release is going to be...
It's going to be
absolutely fire.
Right, Volume 2.
The funny thing about this is, in the whole time we were working on this, we did hit the pause button and did 2 movie scores.
Right, yeah.
So we did, Metal Missionaries and then Metal Health, both over the last couple of years. So it was like, all right, we got 2 out. When was scratching our head? When was the last time we released something? And we were like, well, it was January 2020. We did the 2-song EP.
You did the EP, yep.
Yeah.
And then it was like, all right, well, we need to kind of reel it in and do something. So we were like, you know what? Let's just, like Pat said, move forward. And then we were like, okay, now we kind of need to get this stuff out. So, but we do have see a volume 2 coming. We're just going to say later this summer at some point.
Okay.
We're going to go from a big stretch to not releasing anything to cramming a lot of stuff in people's faces in the course of 1 year.
Well, was that part of why, the volume 1, volume 2 just being kind of a just having so much material, but kind of wanting to spend a little bit more time on additional, or was it just kind of like a plan? Because I know there's a lot of musicians now will put out. Some guys just put out singles. They'll put out like 12 singles, one a month, and then that's your record.
Right, which is smart because it's constant content coming out.
Right.
So originally, volume 1 and volume 2 were only going to be like 3 or 4 new songs, and then maybe a couple of remixes. So that was the original concept of volume 1, volume 2. But then we just had so much material, and we're like, this song has to go on volume 1. This one has to go on volume 1. This has to go on volume 1, and then it ended up being 8 songs. So, and volume 2 is the same way. We've been working on volume 2 for a while now also. But we're coming up with new songs now, and now it's like, all right, that needs to be on volume 2. So it ended up getting more expanded, the length of it. It was supposed to be just like a normal, like maybe you have a full 10 song, record or 12 song record. We're going to split it up into 2 volumes, but it's ended up being bigger than what we originally planned.
And the creative juices kept flowing. So in the past, we were like, all right, we got X amount of songs. We're like, all right, let's just stop there and focus on mixing, mastering, the whole 9.
Right.
And then we were like, you know what? Why should we stifle it? The creative juices are flowing. Let's just ride that wave continually. So Pat and I were sending constant stuff back and forth. Even the last, 2 weeks. Hey, dude, I came up with this. Oh, check this out. I'd send him something, and then he sends it back to me with programming and stuff later that night. And I'm like, and then the creative juices are flowing, the lyrics are going, so it's been like we said, we're just riding the wave and just keep stockpiling. And, like you said, we have a joint Dropbox between both our computers, because I'm in Santa Cruz and he's in San Jose, like 40 miles away from each other. But it's just got like a massive Klank folder with, I don't know, dozens of subfolders and just gigs upon gigs upon gigs of full songs, rough demos, sketches, bits and pieces, just riffs, just loops. Now it's also the concise part of sitting there like mad scientists in the lab going through it going, all right, well, time to start reeling it in and putting it together like a big puzzle.
How do you keep track of all that? Is it just like, I mean, if you have an idea in a folder somewhere, like, does it ever feel like you're just kind of digging, like going in and digging and being like, instead of coming up with a new idea, let me go back and look and see, what I've actually already laid down? Because I mean, there's no way you could remember all of it, just off the top of your head.
No, but that's the thing though. Like we have like, if you go in the folder, it'll be like full sketches or almost, sections or like most like 3/4 complete structures. And then there's one that just says like riffs, but we'll go back and like, hey, what was this one? And it's funny because you'll see heavy 1, heavy groove,
right, with a date on it.
Yeah. Heavy 2/22/19, heavy 1/2/17, 2019. And we're like, what's this? And you're like, I don't know. But then as soon as you click it, you hit play and you hear like the loop or the riff kick in, you're like, oh, no way, I remember that. And then it's like some stuff you go back and you try and revisit because you want to complete it. And sometimes you're just not feeling it. And, just even just recently, it was like, I told Pat and I said, there's a couple things I wanted to work on. I pulled it up in the folder and my brain wasn't feeling it. It wasn't going. And then I was like, all right, well, let me just mess around a little bit, throw just a random beat down and just do a riff. And then all of a sudden I was like, oh my God, that's a really cool riff. Let me double that. Oh, let me do a second part. And all of a sudden it's like a pseudo song structure. And then I sent it to Pat. Hey, I love that riff. Let me mess with that at lunch. And then like by dinner time, boom, he's sending me back an MP3 and a text message. And I'm like, oh, there's drums and programming. And, every time we send each other something, the hamster wheel starts spinning and the creative juices start flowing and you start hearing things and you start building on it, which is great. That's our process in a nutshell.
How hard is it to wait though? Like when you've got something killer that you want to, because like that's hard for me. Like whenever I've got whenever I bag like a really awesome interview or we do a podcast episode that I just really am excited about, and then I've got to sit there and I've got to wait for Joe to edit it, or I've got to, I've got to send the video to my video editor, because I don't have a lot of skills. I just talk, but just having to wait all that time.
It's something, especially if it's a big structure, like if Pat sends me something and it's like the majority of the whole song structure is there. Hey, check this out. I worked on this last night. What do you think? Initially when, I don't know how it is for you, but initially when I hear something, the wheels in my head start spinning. I might not get lyrics. I'll get melody lines. And then it's like autopilot. And sometimes you're like, la, 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 I don't have time for this right now because I'm focused on something else work-wise or life-wise. And it just keeps going. And I have to like pull aside 5 minutes, with my headphones on and my notepad open, jotting down whatever, and sometimes you're just bursting, like, oh my goodness, sometimes you sit there and you're looking at that blank page and you're like, I got nothing, man. And then sometimes, this morning, Pat and I have been going back and forth on this new idea. He said yesterday, I added a couple of parts, did some programming, this and that. I didn't get a chance to check it out last night. I woke up at like 4:45 this morning. I'm laying in bed. I reach on my shelf. I grab the phone and I go, oh yeah, that's right. Pat sent that idea. I click on it. And as soon as it started playing, there goes the hamster wheel in my head. So I opened up the phone, the notepad, and I was like, and then like 8 o'clock, I was like, dude, I already got all the lyrics, I think, for the new song. I got melodies. I was hearing it in my head, like doubles, triples, delays, and sometimes it's so weird how something like that will play out, It's like, I haven't even set foot in front of the microphone already yet, but in my mind, off what the last thing he sent me, I can kind of see what I would like to come to fruition.
And even with releasing stuff, like we're really big on not letting things out there unless done. Just because we're really big on, we don't want to have somebody get a bad first impression on a work in progress.
Sure, yeah.
And sometimes that's tough too, because like the song last night that we got going. I was super stoked on it. The first thing you want to do is just post it and be like, yeah.
Yeah.
And then you realize you're like, don't do it. So yeah, you do get kind of antsy too, waiting for it to release and wanting to like share it, even whether a video or a post or something. So it does get a little antsy after a while that you just want it out there.
Yeah. Especially if it's something that, like with the new album, like we would put like, if Pat was mixing something, if we were having a Friday night mix session, sometimes we would go live on the band page and let people like sit in, and you just take one song, not so much a full song, but you mess around with a couple of parts. But like there was a couple of songs as we were going along with this one, like Goodbye From Me. For me, it was a little, I don't want to say outside of our normal box, but we really wanted to produce it. It was like, hey dude, I got this idea, put some vocals down, and then said, I want to put some layers here. What do you think? Oh, go ahead. Throw some harmonies. And then I'd be like, all right, I got like 3 harmonies. I said, oh man, I'm kind of hearing maybe 1 or 2 more. Go ahead, dude. Just worst case scenario is we don't like it. We don't agree on it. We just mute it.
Sure.
You know what I'm saying? But so some like when those songs, since we've been working since 2017 on these, you come to a point where we're like, okay, it's not mixed, but this song is done for all intents and purposes. All it needs is to be mixed and put the big wrapping paper and the bow on it. It's all good to go. And then it's like, it's sitting in the phone. We're listening to it in our vehicles at work or whatever. We're like, oh man, I want people to hear this so bad, but you have to refrain, like fine wine, not served before it's time. You got to hold off.
Yeah. I think our friend Anthony does all our art and our videos. He's probably the biggest pusher. Like, what are you doing? Just come on, release it already. Do this already.
Yeah. Give me something to do. Yeah.
What are you waiting for?
Do you think the writing process is easier between 2 people versus because in my experience, I found that there's usually two types of songwriting processes. There's either a band where one guy writes everything and then everybody just plays what he wrote, or the types of bands that I was in where it was like having to have 4 or 5 people come to an agreement on something. Do you think it's easier just having kind of 2 sort of approval processes you have to get through whenever you're coming up with ideas?
I think we've since I've been in since like Numb writing and stuff, it's pretty much always been me and Klank We did Urban Warfare was the only record that we actually wrote in a like what you mentioned, like a jamming style, where we actually went into the rehearsal studio and jammed everything. But it was still, I guess it always still came down to, I mean, that was a total cool way of doing it. We never wrote a record like that. So it was different. It was cool. But I think for the most part, it was always, we always just hit it off right away. Writing. We both think the same. We can pretty much know what each other's thinking or what's going to come next.
Yeah, we can anticipate what each other is thinking.
Yeah. So it's always been pretty easy. Like, it's super easy working with Klank. It always has been. But I don't think we had. I'm trying to think like the difference between like with Urban. It may have been a little bit more butted heads, but everybody really got along well.
Yeah. Well, don't forget also in that situation, we all lived in a house together.
Yeah.
So it was like, the drummer and I would be jamming. Pat would come home from work. Oh, what are you guys doing? Plug in his guitar, and we would just, and we'd have Saturdays, whatever. We don't live together anymore. But at the same point, now it's like, it's always kind of been that core. Like, he's always came up with stuff. I've always came up with stuff. And then we'd send each other either random riffs or little sketches, maybe 2 or 3 parts here and there. And we bounce back and forth off each other on that. But that's also the joy of Pat and I working on stuff for so many years. Because, Still Suffering was majority of me, and then working on some stuff with Clayton. But then after that, it was Pat and I. Like, since day one. I don't know if you saw it today, but even like with the throwback photo was Pat and I from 1997. A lot of people don't realize. They go, "Oh, you're working with Pat again," and we're like, "Again?" Yes, now. It's a comfort zone, and it's crazy too because the longer we've done this, it sounds so weird and kind of like, I don't know. As long as we've been doing this, and the longer as we keep going, it's like almost like it gets easier.
Yeah.
Because
in the beginning, you might be a little timid or gun shy, or, I don't want to give a criticism on something he's doing, or he, but at the same time, Pat's always been a great producer with that kind of stuff. I'd say, hey, this is what I'm hearing vocally. And we'd sit down in the studio, I'd say, all right, just press record just so you can do a quick run through and you'll get an idea of what I'm saying. And he would turn around and go, oh man, this is great. But you know what? If you, instead of going high here, if you go low here, or if you do this here, and some of that stuff that every time he suggests something, it's almost like, it's so obvious. Why didn't I think of that?
Right.
But that's the joy of having such a great writing partnership is, like you said, we can kind of anticipate what each other's going to do, or it's almost like you don't know exactly what they're going to do, but you kind of got a vibe. All right, I know Pat's going to totally do his thing here, and vice versa.
Right. We can kind of expect what each other's going to do. We know, like if we're recording vocals, I know what his process is with recording vocals. So it's like it's second nature at this point.
It's autopilot.
Super autopilot. But it's definitely, I think it is easier to get back to your question. From old bands that I was in, you have 4 or 5 guys. It definitely, I think to me, it's easier with just 2 people. And because you're getting into artisticness. That's probably not a word. I probably just made that up, but
it is now. It's on the internet. Now. It exists forever.
Right.
Yeah.
But yeah, you're dealing with somebody's artisticness, their artistic, thoughts, and it becomes, they're real personal. So when you have a lot of people that, or more people, if you say you have 5 guys in a band and someone comes up with a riff and someone else is like, yeah, I don't like it. People can take that,
personally, but it's not
personally, right? Like you're attacking them or whatever. But with us, it's like if he writes a riff that I probably never had heard that I didn't dig, it's not something that I would just be like, oh, well, let's try this,
Right.
And so it's easier to go back and forth and knowing each other so well too, being as good of friends as we've been for probably close to 30 years, if not 30 years. It's a lot easier than having like a full 5 guys in a band.
We've also never been one of those bands. You see these bands where they have full-on fist fights on stage or in the studio. Honestly, we've never even raised our voices to each other.
Yeah.
We've never been that band. And it might kind of sound lame because some people want to hear the knockout drunk stories or
sure.
We don't have any of that. We usually make fun of other bands for that. We just always respected each other's things. And like Pat said, if I'll come up with a riff, I'm like, take this out. And he goes, that's totally dope. But instead of going, try going,
right.
And I'm like, we're always willing to give it a shot. It's not like an ego thing, like, well, you just doesn't like what I want, so I'm not going to do it. I'm going to boycott. It's never been like that.
Yeah, I think we push each other to be better, which is good. And that's the one thing I like with working with Klank is I can't settle. You know, if something's not right, not where it should be, he'll make sure I go that extra bit to get it to where it needs to be.
Yeah,
I think that works both ways.
Because I need to know he's happy with it and vice versa. Like, especially you've probably noticed, because you're a longtime listener, every album, at least even vocally alone, I've tried to expand. I tried to experiment a little bit more, kind of be more comfortable. I know what my limitations are, but I've also liked to try to experiment a little bit more, like more and more layers of vocals, try to sing a little more clean.
Yeah.
But instead of being too clean, when you think I'm tapped out on a clean, I'll drop a growl or something. And like Pat's production ear, especially when it comes to vocals, like, dude, this is great. Let's do one here, do this here. Let's put something in the center, and then let's have a low one come up. And it's like, it's so weird because it's like, I don't want to say a hive mind, but what I'm hearing and visualizing in my head, he kind of picks up on. And if I'm not explaining it okay, he'd be like, well, try this, try this, try this. And then once it's all done, I'm like, dude, that's what I was hearing, but I couldn't say what I wanted, but I didn't have to. You know what I'm saying? It's like awesome.
Oh, that's cool. Well, speaking of the songs, I kind of want to get into those a little bit too, because I found this record to be honestly, it's funny because like last time we talked, I couldn't get over your tagline that you were using, which was, you know, where the mosh pit meets the dance floor sort of vibe. This is the danciest one yet that I've heard, as far as like, because I was listening to it at work today, just kind of casual. And at work, they don't let us wear headphones anymore. So like some of us sarcastically responded by bringing our own Bluetooth speakers in. So like so we'll listen to whatever we want. And usually I play stuff that just makes people leave me alone. You know, I'll just play like a bunch of death metal or, you know, thrash or something, you know, something people are not going to relate to. So I was playing this, and this was one of the first albums that I'd played at work that people kind of kept coming by and being like, what is this? You know what I mean? Like kind of like this is different than what you normally listen to. It's funny too, because a guy came in.
Turn it off.
No, it's funny. A guy came up to me, and I think it was on Goodbye From Me. He's like, this is a lot different than what you normally listen to. He's like, I can really get this. And then that death growl at the end of it came in, and he was like, oh. He was like, oh, I see. you know. But this one was, like I found this one to be really, really enjoyable, just because there seemed to be more of a focus on sort of that catchiness. Because I know, like, you know, there's different, obviously, you know, I don't have to really tell you guys this, but you know, there's different types of Klank albums. There's the ones where it's like, we're just gonna go kill, you know, and then there's some that are just a little bit more like focused on the traditional sort of song structure, but done in a catchy way that's gonna stick with people. And that's, you know, I think the chorus game was like really good on this one, you know. Because a lot of those songs stuck with me. But what I like doing is kind of doing a little bit of a album breakdown for people that haven't heard the record, or sometimes if I hear a song and it doesn't connect with me right away, sometimes like getting a little bit more background or context on a song will actually can enhance my enjoyment or show me what to look for. So I'd like to, I don't know if we'll go through all 8 tracks, but I just wanted to start on the first one, Apologies, and just get a little bit of background on that song. And I won't say a generic thing like, what was the process like recording that song? You know, but just a little background on that song, the idea behind it.
That song in particular is a standout one because right after Still Suffering was done in '96, Pat and I he was living in Lindenhurst. I was in Farmingdale on Long Island. I remember being in the shower one day, and I had this in my head. I'm like washing my hair, scratching my back, and this thing was running through my head. I got out of the shower. I remember being soaking wet. I'm like texting Pat, dude, I got this idea and it's going through my head and it's killing me right now. He goes, well, come on over.
You're right.
Fly over to his house. 10 minutes later, I'm explaining what I'm hearing in my head. He had this old Korg Triton or Trinity.
I think it was a Trinity back then.
Trinity.
Yeah, Trinity.
And I remember that it's sitting on his bed and he programmed out the synth bass from me like simulating it with my mouth, cut some like guitar ideas. And that was, dude, we're talking 1997, end of 96, 97.
The song was supposed to be on Numb.
Yeah, the song was supposed to be on Numb. And we were like, it was one of the first songs that were written post Still Suffering. And I was like, everything I came up with melody and lyric wise, I hated it. And when we started going through stuff in 2017, Pat was going through hard drives and stuff. And he goes, oh, check this out. Look at this one. And he goes, man, dude, it's such a shame you could never come up with anything you like for this. And I'm like, I know, man. So like, he, sent it to me. I downloaded it through my email at his house. And at that point, I was living at the top of a mountain, 35, 40 miles away, whatever. It was like an hour trip. As I'm leaving his house that night, I'm replaying it in my head. And, there's 2 scenic overlooks during the course of this mountain trip. I stopped at the first one and I'm like, oh my God. And I'm in my notepad. And I get up to the top and I'm dude, this song is just playing on a loop nonstop. And I'm singing as I'm going. Only what I've worked on at that point. When I get to the top of the mountain, to the second pull out, I pull out and I go, I think I finished it. And I remember texting him, like, I get to the top and I go, oh, dude, you're not going to believe this. I finished it. Finished what? I go, I finished the song. He goes, what song? I go, remember that song from...
That song. Yeah.
That song. It's 1997. He goes, no way. So he's like, well, come by tomorrow. And it was one of those things that after work the next day, I came over and I said, we did our normal process. He sits down. I go, let it play in the background. This is what I'm hearing. When I get to the chorus, I'm hearing 2 or 3 vocals, maybe delay here, maybe this. And then we just do a test run. And it was funny. We get through it. He presses record, turns around, rolls around in his chair, and he goes, why couldn't you do that like 20 years ago? I'm like, oh no. But it was like the lyrics just came like that. It seemed, and that one's it's called Apologies. And it was about basically being young and dumb. Somebody says something or does something and pisses you off. You're like, screw that guy, whatever. I don't need him. The older you get, you realize friendships, especially old friends, it's harder to make friends as you get older. And the older you get, you don't have these 20, 30, 40, 50-year friendships.
Right.
So there was a lot of people I lost along the way because of my own ignorance and nonsense and the chip on my shoulder. Because I was young and dumb, and I just was like, well, you don't like what I got to say, well, kind of screw you kind of thing. Hindsight, the flip side of that was like, man, I would do so many things different if I just had the chance. And that's what I wanted to emulate in the song. And especially that one, because it's super dancey. It's so dancey and so iconic that by the time we got done with it, it was like, we both kind of sat back, high-fived, and we were like, freaking hey, man, like, that's what it should have been 20 plus years ago, but at least it's done,
Right. That's good. That is quite the history. Well, I'm gonna move on to Life, Existence is Futile, which is maybe one of the most Klank song titles, as far as just there's always some sort of existential despair song on everything. And I like those because I think that they're honest and they're just sort of a way like I know people, you're always listening to that depressing music where everybody's just as depressed as you are. There are times where I feel like the only reason I'm still here is because I knew there were other people out there that were as depressed as I was.
Yeah, you associate with them, and you're not alone because they're not alone. And it's not like sit around, slash your wrist, kind of emo kind of stuff. You know what I mean?
Sure.
Like you hear something, you go, man. Because even for Pat and I, there's bands growing up, we were like, dude, they get it. Like they're saying what I'm feeling, but they said it. And then for us, all these years later, people like send letters and go, dude, you said exactly what I was thinking. You put a flashlight in my head. You said everything I wanted to say, but I wasn't able to say, and you guys did it. And thank you. And for us, it's like, man, we just did what came natural. We vent about what happens to me personally, him personally, us collectively, sometimes our friends or family members or whatever in third person, we write about it. But that, Pat, you want to talk about this one a bit?
Yeah, I think the only thing I'll add, this is one of those songs in particular that wasn't supposed to be on the record wasn't even there when we started doing it. This is two songs in particular, this and What Can I Do?
Okay.
Those are the most recently written ones that we just started. All of a sudden, they both came together so quick, and we're like, this has to get added onto it.
Right.
I think it's I can add on that one. Yeah, it's a song one of my favorites on it.
For sure.
Like seriously though, like our lyrics, one of the things I've always enjoyed is people have always said to us, your lyrics are different than most bands. It's relatable. I listen to it and it touches me. And for me, it's like, I can only write about what I know and what I feel. And life, the older you get, things get harder. Like the lyrics, another phase, next step, who's guess, what's next, gotta figure out what to do. Another year, seasons turn, wheels spinning, gears burn, won't believe the hell I've been through. I mean, I've been through a divorce. I moved halfway across the country to get for a job position. That was like a silver platter job. And 2 weeks after I got there, my wife cheated on me. My whole entire world fell apart. And it was just like, well, what the hell do I do now? And I was like, you call this life? This isn't living. It's not living. And it was just, that's how it kind of came about. I remember sending the original to Pat. And it was like, and he was at work, and he was like, oh, that's pretty cool. And then at lunchtime, he worked on something, send me back some like loops and stuff. Yeah. And then we kind of went back and forth. And then one day I was just like, because when I first went to Texas, I had a lot of time on my hand after my wife and I split, because I had started a job where I was on payroll, but we weren't really working. So it was like, I guess the closest thing to being in retirement that I could, where you're getting a check and you're not doing dick. You're just kind of hanging out all day.
Right.
I was just alone with my thoughts, and that was great and bad. Great because I was able to come up with music, bad because it was like, now you're stuck alone in a room, in a house with just your thoughts. You know, and it lent itself to this great music like Life. And that's why it's called Existence is Futile, because it just seems like no matter what you do, you know, every day is the roller coaster of life. And that's one of the most common Klank themes is life. It's a roller coaster. You get up, you get knocked down, you get back up. You don't let people steamroll over you. You got to live another day. You got to fight another day. It is what it is, and that's what we do. That's what we've done since we were kids in Long Island. You know,
enjoy the good times while they're there, because the bad times are right around the corner.
Yeah,
exactly. And don't focus on just the ups and the downs, because life is always going to do this and go around the bends no matter what. Life isn't blue skies and green lights from here to eternity. And if it is, you're not living a real life.
We wouldn't appreciate it if it was.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, much like music, you have to balance things that are good and pretty and fun with something more harsh and something, you know, the harshness doesn't have that grit unless it has something beautiful to be next to it to compare, you know? Yeah. I got that. Somebody told me a long time ago that was a fundamental of music, but yeah, I can kind of feel
it's true though. It's like you got to have the yin and the yang. You got to have the balance. And I know how new agey that sounds, but you know what I mean. It's like
a tension and release sort of thing too, you know. Well, the next song, "Goodbye from Me," is probably my favorite on the record, mostly because, again, very, very catchy chorus and sort of an extreme vocal at the end that I wasn't really prepared for in context with the rest of the song, and of course that's why it's there, you know.
Yeah. Exactly.
Well, honestly, I wasn't prepared for it either. It just kind of happened one day. We were going back and forth over ideas, and it was like, hey, I mean, it's kind of obvious that one's about my divorce. What I went through, you know, the culmination of what I was feeling at the time. And I just kind of remember when we were cutting it, because don't forget also to back up a little bit, these days when COVID hit, everybody was doing we're going to record remotely. We're going to do this. Pat and I were freaking 5 years ahead of the curve. When I was in Texas and he was out here, you know, we were doing like remote recording before it was fashionable or cool, so to speak. So we were going back and forth. And I just remember at the end, I wanted my frustration and the pissed offedness. There's another word, pissed offedness.
That's a good one. Yeah.
To come through.
That's better.
You know, and it was just like, you know, and like that last, when beauty is tainted with lies and you are the one that I despise. I just wanted that, like, you know, I needed that release, and it wasn't intentional. It wasn't planned. It just kind of happened, and we were both kind of like, whoo, damn. All right, want to double that? Yeah, sure, let's do it. You know, it's kind of one of those what we call happy accidents in our camp. There's lots of happy accidents that happen.
And like you said, it's a total like a song that you would never expect that to be anywhere in the song, and then it just shows up at the end.
Yeah.
It's pretty cool.
And it's got the hook. It's and you know what? Honestly, it's a very pissed off song lyrically, wrapped up in a nice package. You know, and Pat was just very cool about, hey, well, try this. Why don't you try? You know, you did this harmony. Try this. Try that. And it was like once it was all done, I was just so happy with myself too because I sat back and was like, damn it, man, that's me. Like singing it. Like again, a credit to his production skills, like pushing. You know, he knows what I can and what I can't do. Try it again. Try it again. Go a little higher. Hold it here. And it was like, I can't thank him enough because the end result, like when we first doing the mixing of that, and I was listening like on my stereo speakers, the Bluetooth, and in the car, dude, my hair on my arms was like a porcupine, like because our music has always been real and relatable, but this was like an exposed nerve. Like, dude, you can't be any more raw and honest to what I was trying to say. And I felt I captured it. Pat felt I captured it. The few people I showed a couple of parts, even my friends in Texas, they, you know, one guy, like, I was in the middle of going through my divorce and he was like, dude, I showed him a clip, a demo. And he just turned around and he looked at me and he had like tears in his eyes. He goes, dude, this is freaking heavy, man. He goes, I've always been a fan. He goes, but knowing you here and knowing firsthand what you went through, he goes, this is gut wrenching. He goes, I hate it, but I love it.
Yeah.
And I was like, I get it. And that's what I was hoping other people would get. And it's so funny to see the feedback from people saying, you know what, this song and just, ooh, man, like a thorn in my skin. It hit me. It resonated and reverberated with me. And that's like the best compliment when you're a songwriter because you wrote something for yourself. You know, we always say sonic therapy. Klank's music is sonic therapy. We don't lay on somebody's couch. This is what we do. This is how we get it out. And if one person gets something out of it, great. But the fact that all these people kind of, you know, including yourself, said, man, this is cool. This is heavy. For us, that's what it's all about, you know?
Yeah, for sure. No, it's funny with that. It's funny with and I'm sorry, I'm always so fixated on like the extreme elements of it, but it's when I was talking to that guy at work and that death vocal came in and he was just like, man, he's like, how do they do that? He's like, cause he doesn't listen to much metal, you know? So he was just like, how do you do this? Like pitch shifted or what? I was like, no, that's all him. I was like, you know, there's a lot of electronics at play, you know, in their music, but those are all just him. And he's like, no, really? I was like, dude, I've got him doing intros to my podcast in that voice. And it's, you know, like it's 100% dry right into the microphone, you know? And
there's a lot of people that do those vocals and they do pitch shifters on their voice.
Yeah.
We've never had to do that.
The only effects, we might throw a little delay and reverb on here and there, but it's all real. It's not, you know, fabricated.
Well, I think that's part of the relatability too, you know, like especially talking about the sung vocal, the cleans and all that. And you're listening to it back and you're like, man, it sounds so good. And I think that is one aspect of Klank that is, I think a lot of the times when people think of Klank, they're just like, oh yeah, it's, you know, heavy band, electronics, you know, all that. But like, I think the sort of more almost rock and roll approach is first of all, more relatable to more people. You know, not everybody, you know, wants to get blasted to death every time they, you know, put a record on. But I definitely see a lot more of that sort of traditional rock influence on this record. And I think that's part of why it's so catchy. Because like when you get to What Can I Do? I mean, I'm 4 tracks in at this point, and all of the tracks before it have stuck with me. And, you know, I'm already 4 tracks in. Normally, I mean, I review music, you know, most of the time. And so I don't remember a lot of what I listen to a lot of the time. I'll get to the end of a record and say like, oh man, like I don't, I'll have to go listen to it again because I can't really review it if I don't remember any of it. Did not have a problem with this record at all. And What Can I Do? That's one of my favorite choruses, just because I don't really know how to describe it. It's hard talking about music because you're trying to describe something that's ultimately indescribable. But I think that the chorus on that song is one of the catchiest and one of the most relatable because it's a song that sounds kind of desperate and So yeah, just
But
expand my mind. Yeah.
The hook on that song, I remember when it was done, just sitting back listening to him, being like, "Whoa!" Like that is probably the best hook we've ever written.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's weird because it's a very poppy hook.
Yeah.
Yeah. And not poppy lyrically.
Not poppy lyrically, and the song's not really poppy, but yeah, it's that's still one that I listen to, and I'm super proud of that song, and that hook, and it was one that I think I almost forgot about when we were getting ready to do the mastering and we mix it, and I'm like, oh wait, what's this one? And I'm like, I think I even texted Klank being like, oh dude, I totally forgot about
this one.
What song is this? Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
and
because
then
it's so unorthodox.
Yeah, and just when the hook kicks in, my hair, my arms stand up. Yeah, that's one I'm really proud of on this record, especially with that hook.
Yeah, and that whole hook thing was like, the hook itself was a happy accident. I was in Texas sending stuff back and forth with Pat, and I just remember being like, no motivation, no inspiration. Tell me, what can I do? It was like when you say desperate, dude, I sat in my room every day for months at night in pitch black, just hating life. Not like, boo-hoo, woe is me, I lost my wife. It was like, my life had been a complete crap storm for so long. The one thing I had was stability with her and with the pets. And then when when that all burnt to the ground, it was like, it was me, my dog Ellie, and the cat that was basically dying because of like feline herpes and gingivitis. She left, she took the Mastiff, she took the 2 healthy cats. And I was just sitting there like, this song, like when you listen to the lyrics, this one and Between Unholy and Divine are literally, they could be taken from a journal or a diary. It was my mental state dealing with this. Like, I've been stuck inside a hell that I've never been before. It's just endless days repeating, same old windows, same old doors. I've been feeling like I'm trapped, like I'm stuck inside a loop. I don't want to pull the trigger, but I don't know what else to do.
Yeah.
And it was just like, because every day, dude, it was the same crap over and over. And then at night, it was like, I don't want to die, but at the same point, like, dude, I'm stuck in a rut. Like, what the freaking hell is going on? And it was like just being stuck in a loop, and I hated it. And it just lent itself to the lyrics, to the song. And that's why we said this song, by all rights, this song should not work.
Yeah.
Like lyrical content, dark, ominous, hating life. Like, what am I going to do? Should not work with a poppy kind of sappy hook to it. But that's one of the joys of Klank is we've never wanted to be stuck in any one box. When you think we're just death metal or we're just electronic or we're just this, we like to pull the rug out from under you, slap you around a little bit, mess with you. And this was a prime example of that. Like, it's been dark inside my mind and I don't like where I'm at. I've been hanging by a thread and there's not much left of that. You can't get any more real. And who can't relate to that? Bad days, horrible day with the wife, horrible day at work, you lost your job, whatever's going on. It was just, and for us, it just came naturally. When other people like say, hey man, this resonated with me, it comes back to that whole, we did what we did for us. And the fact that other people were like, dude, you don't understand what this did for me. And the healing it brought, or the peace, or I felt like I wasn't alone anymore. We've been doing this for so many years. To still hear people say that, it's the ultimate compliment, man. It's just nice to know that we're still doing what we want to do for us, but there's still an audience willing to listen and eager to listen, and that still get I don't want to say nourished by it, but they're getting touched by it in one way or another.
Yeah, I mean, and I think it also proves sort of that people, as time goes on, everybody thinks that we're all so different from each other, and I think it's sort of there are certain feelings that are universal. It doesn't matter where you come from. It doesn't matter how old you are. It doesn't matter what your life situation is. It doesn't matter what it is. Those feelings translate, and
we can all relate.
Yeah, and we're all a lot closer to one another than we really necessarily think that we are. But I'll stop being philosophical here, and yeah, no, I've had a hell of a week as well. So this is definitely refreshing. So we've got, let's see, I'm gonna pick like maybe two more songs. I'll be a little bit more choosy. I'm gonna skip Keyboard Commandos because I think that song 100% explains itself.
Yeah.
There's no, if you don't understand what the vibe is on that song, and
Trolls. In a nutshell, it's trolls.
Trolls. Yeah, let's just get a reaction. Whatever we got to do and say, let's get a reaction, and that is the world that we live. What a wonderful time to be alive.
Yeah.
I'm gonna jump in with Between Unholy and Divine, kind of the title track.
Pat, do you want to jump?
Full on angry. I think that's probably brings me back to Still Suffering days. Probably more animosity-ish. I think it pretty much sums up like what Klank said before. It's raw about what he was going through, and I think that's why it really, really feel in that song the emotion that he was going through at that time.
I remember when I first sent Pat the idea for that. It was one of those mornings I went because I was doing the gym at like 4:30 in the morning with a friend of mine, and by 6 a.m. when other people had just waken up, I was like ready to just like strangle people and run 3 miles, and I was just kind of hard. I was really pissed one day, and I just remember sitting down, like coming up with this riff. I remember I sent it to Pat, and the first thing he sent back, he goes, "Oh my God, that's a wrist burner. I'm going to have to start practicing for that one." And we were like, ha, kind of chuckling. And then I just remember like the next day or so, like coming back and revisiting it and just being like trapped inside, everything that I was feeling lyrically, with just like, what can I do? It was just it was dark, and it was very autobiographical, so to speak, like, trapped inside the sea of endless black, wondering if I can make it back, calling out for help, but will I drown this time? Walk the line between unholy and divine. Lost myself, but am I too far gone? Hollow thoughts that haunt me till the dawn. This is because I was up every night, dude, literally every night, like wondering if I was going to make it to see the light of the day the next day. Outstretched hands reaching to the sky, embers of my life disintegrate in time. And it was like, I just kept picturing like a fire. You throw stuff on a fire and it burns and it just goes up in the sky. And that was my life. That was my entire life. My existence since 2010 was just everything that I knew was just pissed on, crapped on, burnt up in the fire, and was literally disintegrating in front of me. And it was like, what the hell? So it was like you couldn't get any more raw and explicit in that respect lyrically, like mental, like I said, I don't want to make it sound any worse than it was, but for a while I was sitting up at night researching the least painless ways to check out. And like I said, it wasn't one of those boo-hoo, my wife left me, I'm going to kill myself. I hadn't felt like that, dude, since my late teens. And I was in just such a really bad spot, and I had just moved to Texas. My friends, Pat, Eric, and anybody else, like my church here, I had moved halfway across the country away from everybody, and none of this was supposed to happen that way. Right. And then I felt like I was on a deserted island that was burning and slowly sinking, and that was it, and I was just like, mental prison clawing at these walls, darkened voices taunt me in the halls, lack of sleep becomes my one true friend. Will I see the light, or could this be the end? And like I said, you can't get any more raw and open book, open page. Like most people that read the lyrics and listen to it, they go, dude, I can visualize this. And I'm like, yeah, you can visualize it, but I friggin' lived it, man.
Right.
I'm probably still here to tell the tale, and like as horrible as all these events went through, the running joke that Pat and I have is I go, yeah, at least some good music came out of it. But it's like very tongue in cheek, but I'm in a good place now. I'm happy where I'm at. I'm still alive. I'm still kicking. But as horrible as that was to go through an experience, one of the things about what we do is we're able to take that, spin it, and use it to our advantage.
Yeah.
And the end result is this album and the next album, because Volume 1 and Volume 2 are both a continuing theme, constantly life, the human condition, what life as we see it, how it affects us, how it affects those around us. But you literally can't get any more raw, exposed nerve than a lot of these lyrics.
Yeah, no, you really can't. I mean, this is one of the, it's so interesting because whenever at the top of this, I was like, yeah, this is definitely the most danceable. And it's like you're sitting there listening, and you're banging your head, you're kind of moving around, and then you've got these lyrics that are just like bleeding the human condition, like all over you. Whereas with most bands that would sound similar, either they'd be writing about either doing drugs or just partying or
They take a
just
different
about
approach to it.
Yeah, I think these songs, if you really listen to the lyrics, they kind of almost put the listener in the house with Klank.
Yeah.
Where you can watch what he was actually going through, and I think that emotion's there.
Yeah, for sure. And it's noticeable from the first listen, whereas it's not like some sort of like, oh yeah, I really like this record. Dude, did you read the lyrics on there? This is pretty dark, some stuff.
Yeah.
But what's interesting is the final song, No Victim Here, sort of has more of kind of a positive spin. I mean, at least as positive as you can get on a record like this, which is very much, standing here battle worn, a little torn, but I'm here. And just like celebrating the fact that, yes, I went through this, but I did survive. I am here.
That's like
you see his mindset changing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Especially going from Between Unholy and Divine, which is so like
dark,
opposite, and then it's coming. It's like, it's kind of giving that arc back up.
Yeah.
And that's, like we said, is a common theme with Klank stuff. You listen to like Bring Me Down and Rise, and even Don't Count Me Out, and even like on Still Suffering, it's like there's common themes because life stays this. Even though life changes, something stay the same. It's that ebb and flow, that up and down, that twist and turn, and that's why, like, to face the fears head first, to do the work and shed the tears. It's like there's a positive spin. Like, there's no victim here. I won't be the one who gets broken. It's like, at the end of the day, it's like, you know what? You can stay on the ground and lay there and whinge, or you can get up, dust yourself off, and be like, I'm up. What's up? Like, we live. I hate to quote Friday, but Craig, you live to find another day. And that's essentially what it is musically. It's like, yeah, we're taking the scrapes, we're taking the bruises, we're taking the bumps, but we're still here, and this is what it is. And you know what? I'm not going to, after all I've been through, after all Pat's been through, after all anybody who listens has been through, we're not going to lay down and be the victim here. We're going to press forward and do what we always do.
That's awesome. It's kind of a weird question. I know that during this time, because I remember the first interview we did with you, you were still in Texas. It was still kind of like when you were kind of in the middle of all this,
Oh, and I was in a bad place.
I know, and it's weird too, because you couldn't tell from that interview. You were so, animated and ready to go, and it was one of my favorite chats that we've done. And, but I know that also around that time, you got really, really, really into fitness. And, do you feel like that had a positive, I need to get into fitness myself a little bit more. But did you feel that had, kind of a positive effect on your mental health as well? Just sort of
It did. It was a very healthy outlet. The short and sweet of it is, it was like September, October, got to Texas, all hell broke loose within 2 weeks. And by January, when she was already gone and we had split, dude, I was binge drinking and eating everything and anything inside. I gained 50 pounds.
Oof.
I was gross. I hated myself. I looked in the mirror and I was just like, what the hell? Who are you? And I needed to harness my energy and focus into something else. So I was at the gym every day at 4:30. I mean, dude, I was doing stuff I'd never done before, deadlifts. Dude, I was like 630 pounds on leg press. I was smashing my personal goals, and I was so hungry for it, but I was having some gastrointestinal issues simultaneously. And when I went to the doctor at one point, he's like, you need surgery. I said, okay. He goes, well, run me through your normal day. And I'm like, I get up at 4:30. I go to the gym. I do squats. I do deadlifts. I do this. And he was like, no, freaking no. He's like, you're basically ripping your lower intestine. Your large intestine.
No.
you can't do this. And I was like, so I had to stop. And I lost some of the momentum, but honestly, it was so positive for me to have that because it kind of gave me a purpose, even though I was still sitting up every night going, what the hell should I do? What the hell should I do? I don't know where to go from here. It was like come 4:30 in the morning, I was at the door of the gym meeting my friend. And, he's been doing weightlifting since college. So he was like, he had a whole regimen. He goes, what do you want to do? I told him. And it was like, boop, 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 boop. And it was good for me because it was structured. It was a goal I was trying to attain. And honestly, like, I'm kind of envious right now because I'm not going to lie. COVID hit. I got very lax. I wasn't as strict on my keto. I wasn't doing portion controls. And, the doctor had said, no more of this stuff until you get surgery. I had my surgery. It was like 95% successful, which was good. But I was told I wasn't cleared to go back to the gym. And then I ended up a couple of months later moving back out here.
Right.
And not too long, 6-8 months, whatever it was later, it was like, we're now going into COVID. We're going into this. And it was like, well, I'm just going to hang. Well, we can't leave anyway. So I'm just going to drink. I'm not going to the gym. I wasn't doing my planks or any of that stuff. And next thing you know, it was like, oh, I feel like a fat bastard again.
Right.
But it was definitely good for me to have that focus. I'm trying to reel it in a bit again. But at that time, honestly, not that it was a crutch for me, but if I didn't have that goal and what I was doing every day fitness wise, I don't know where I would be or what my mental condition would have been because dude, when you're pissed off and you're angry and you're sitting there with a leg press or you have, a 285-pound guy holding you down on your shoulders and you're pulling as much as you can. And I wasn't, roiding or doing any of that. I was doing it all natural. But I said I would leave the gym and I was like, what? Who's got something to say? And then I go home and I walk my dog for 3 hours.
Right.
It's like, wait, what was that Reese Witherspoon movie, Legally Blonde? You're working out releases endorphins. Endorphins make you happy. You don't kill people when you're happy.
Right.
Yeah, exactly.
Something like that.
But it's funny though, because I look at some of those pictures now on Instagram or Facebook messages and they make Facebook memories and they pop up and they go, oh, I was kind of ripped. Oh, I could see abs. And then I look down and I'm like, all I see is a 32 pack. I'm like, oh.
That's a keg. That's not a 32.
Yeah, this is a Tony keg.
That's a beer ball.
Nothing wrong with it. Nothing wrong with a keg.
No.
That's actually why I quit drinking was more the calorie intake. Because I'd sit here and do these interviews, and I'd just pound them back. Like I'd get a 6-pack of craft beer. And these are like 8-9%. That's why I would get real loopy sort of towards the end of the interviews. Like I didn't slur my words much, but like I'd start going into real weird territory, like it's sort of like, and somebody be like, hey man, I think maybe this about wraps it up. It's never a good sign when the guest is like, hey man, I think you're done. I think you're cut off.
Wrap it up, B.
Wrap it up, B. Wrap it up.
This is supposed to be a 15-minute interview. You've been going for 93 minutes. Yeah. He didn't even ask me any questions.
He's just talking about himself.
Yep. I do get that criticism. Some of the host talks too much.
And some person next to him that's not there.
Right.
But I gotta say the flip side of that is when your guard is down and you might be, let's say, a little inebriated or whatever, you go off script, unorthodox. And a lot of times those are the things that people want to hear because you have the usual questions. Well, when did you do this? How did you do this? How did you do this? But when you kind of start rambling a little bit and you get off onto like a different plane, that's also when, I don't want to say the truth comes out, but you dig a little deeper because there's difficult questions. And then when you kind of go veer off path a little bit, sometimes you unearth those gems and you get people talking and you're like, this is radio. This is journalism because it's not the regular scripted stuff. It's the off the cuff. This is exactly what I'm feeling 100% in the moment that you're asking,
Yeah, for sure. That was definitely always a benefit. I think for me, it was just kind of getting to the point where like you could like, I was using it as a way to settle nerves. Because the very first time I ever set, ever reach out to somebody to do an interview, because you've heard the podcast before where most of the time, it's just me and my co-host talking about albums, and we did that for a very long time. And we still do that every week. But we were always, I was always kind of terrified. I was like, I don't know what to say to these people. Like if I reach out, like I'm going to say something stupid, or I'm going to ask a question that's too personal, or ask something that they've been asked 400 times by other people, because I'm sure you guys have been through that too, almost feeling like you've done the same interview 3 or 4 times, Yeah. And so yeah, it was. I think for me, it was just kind of to steady nerves and things like that. But when I realized how many calories I was drinking away, if I did 3 interviews in a week, that's that's like eating basically 2 extra meals every night, 3 nights a week. Yeah,
but craft beers taste so good.
They do. They do. Well, that's how you don't even notice them.
Well, that's why you got to drink whiskey, because it's less calories.
It is less. It's more expensive though. Well, depending on where you go,
Right.
Costco.
It depends upon what craft beer you're drinking too.
Truth, absolutely. I'm gonna ask one more question about volume 2. You guys said that it's coming out later on in the summer-ish, right? We don't have like a hard.
It will be in the summer. We don't have a date. We have a rough time frame. We're thinking. We're not uttering it out loud because we don't want to jinx anything.
Sure.
But we are working towards that goal. Let's just say summer. Summer there will be volume 2, and then it's going to be followed by some remix releases.
Nice.
We'll throw that into the pot and stir it up a little bit.
There you go.
And then there's a couple of cover songs we're working on also.
Dude, that would be
cover
cool.
songs. There's a couple of random songs we're just going to either release. There'll be some songs that we just kind of give away as a free MP3. And this is also not including side project stuff that we've been doing. So that's why we were saying, like, between this year and next year, it should be a really good year release-wise for us, because, I mean, we're sitting on an intense pile of gigs of stuff that we've been really trying to, like, reel in. And, but like we said in the very beginning, we don't want to stifle the creative flow of things. So if that fountain is going, we've been saying, instead of stopping it and saying, well, let's just do this, we're like, let's double dip. Let's still mix stuff while simultaneously coming up with new ideas, because why turn the faucet off? If it's flowing, let it flow. Even if it sits for a little bit and we stockpile, it just means we have more down the road.
Sure.
Yeah. And then we have a volume 1 announcement coming soon also.
Oh, cool. Sweet.
Yes.
Well, we won't spoil that here. Because I hate it. I hate I hate pushing people to be like, give me a date. Tell me what's going on. What are we doing? Like do the pushy interviewer shtick. But one of the pleasures of doing what we all 3 do, which is make announcements, release content, release, the biggest pleasure is being able to unveil that under your own terms.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's a surprise, but definitely make sure you guys are following Klank on socials and Bandcamp. This record is out, by the way. I'm pretty sure I mentioned that before. This record is out. And did you guys get you guys got CD copies already?
Yeah, we are working with our CDs. We're working with Sharon Collective.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So
okay. I just interviewed. Yeah, I interviewed Eric real recently. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So you can get if you want a hard copy CD, you can get it from the Sharon Collective Bandcamp page. If you want digital, everywhere.
Yeah.
Our Bandcamp, you can get it.
All streaming sites.
Everywhere. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Everybody knows the drill.
Yep. 100%.
All I'm going to say about our what is for the big thing that we have coming up. We're just excited because this is something we've never done before that we've wanted to do. I'm going to be super cryptic and vague book about it, but we're just really excited because we've been working with our graphic artist, trying to do something cool we've never done before. And we're just excited because now, with the release of the first volume and we're closing in on the second one, it's like we feel like we're breaking new ground. Well, first of all, we're going to have 2 releases in a year for us, which is like,
yeah, no, that's cool.
So we're just happy. We're gonna have fun with it, because at the end of the day, for us, as you can probably tell by now, it has to be fun. It has to be enjoyable. We take it seriously, obviously, but one thing we've learned over the years is it has to be fun for us. If it's like an annoying job and having an annoying boss superintendent standing over you. You got to do this. You got to do this. There's no sense doing it because if I want to be miserable, I go to work. You know what I'm saying? Go to his job.
Yeah.
This is our happy place. This is our release. This is where we get to release all the things and be happy. So we've found comfort and solace in what we do, how we do it, and making sure it's always fun. Because at the end of the day, if it's not fun, it's not worth doing. Because this is supposed to be our artistic release and our venting of frustrations or whatever, but both positive and negative.
Sure.
So now it's like, you know what? We found our niche. We found our happy place to work, and you know, I can honestly say, over the last couple of years, it's been the most fun. Out of all these years we've been doing stuff, it's like, it just seems like we've hit such a good, happy place in what we do, really.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. Definitely not worth it if you're not enjoying yourself. And I just want to thank you guys so much for taking the time out to talk. I know we scheduled, for anybody that doesn't, that listeners wouldn't know, but like I think I've rescheduled this like 2 or 3 times because of just stuff going wrong. But
life.
Yep.
Yeah, life gets in the way. It is what it is.
Yep. But I don't thank you guys for sticking with me.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, we really appreciate it. And what's up, Joe? We miss you. Sorry we didn't get to see you tonight.
I'm watching the stream. Don't worry, Klank.
And now he's gonna drop a sound clip of his own voice being like, "Hey, it was, sorry I missed you guys." Yeah,
you know you love it.
Absolutely. All right, guys. We are. That's it for the interview tonight. For anybody that's watching on YouTube, and I will see you guys next time. I'll have links to the album in the show notes below.
Woohoo!
This has been Discuss Metal with Klank and Pat of Klank. Presented by discussmetal.com.